Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk to you about something most people shy away from. I want to talk to you about becoming a monster. Now, don't misinterpret me. I don't mean a monster of destruction, a monster of fear, or a monster of pain. I mean a monster of unstoppable power, unshakable confidence, and relentless determination. I mean a force so fierce inside you that nothing in the outside world can hold you back. The truth is, most people live as mere shadows of what they could be. They settle, they compromise, they allow fear, doubt, and excuses to dictate their lives, and that's the difference between ordinary people and monsters. Monsters don't settle. Monsters don't wait. Monsters don't apologize for wanting everything life has to give them. Becoming a monster starts with your mindset. Every single thought you allow to run through your mind either builds your strength or feeds your weakness. Most people are feeding their weakness, playing small, hiding in comfort. But monsters feed their power. They train their minds to dominate fear, to crush doubt, and to transform every failure into fuel for growth. Then comes action. Monsters don't just think, they move. They take massive, relentless action. Action that scares them. Action that feels uncomfortable. Action that most people would call reckless. But that's exactly the point. Because monsters know that growth is born in the discomfort. Success is forged in the fires of challenge, adversity, and pressure. But here's the kicker. Becoming a monster isn't about stomping over others. It's about owning your inner strength and unleashing it on your purpose. Monsters serve a higher goal. They attack their dreams with such ferocity that they leave mediocrity trembling in their wake. They don't wait for permission. They don't wait for luck. They take what's theirs because they were willing to become unrecognizably powerful. Now, ask yourself this. What would your life look like if you became a monster? What would you achieve if fear had no hold on you? What relationships, what opportunities, what level of success could you grab if you refuse to be small? The answer is limitless, but only if you decide today that being ordinary is no longer an option. So I challenge you, awaken the monster within you. Feed it with discipline. Strengthen it with courage. Sharpen it with relentless pursuit. Let it roar so loud that the world has no choice but to notice, no choice but to step aside, no choice but to recognize that you have arrived. The monster isn't coming. It's already inside you. It's been waiting, hungry for you to claim it. And when you finally unleash it, when you finally step into your full power, nothing will ever be able to stop you. Now rise. Now dominate. Now become a monster. Awakening your inner power begins with a realization that most of the limitations you experience are illusions, mental constructs that have been programmed into you by society, by circumstances, by fear itself, and by the people around you who have long ago settled for mediocrity. Every person walking this earth carries a force inside them that is immense, boundless, and unconstrained, yet most people never even catch a glimpse of it because they live their lives according to other people's expectations, according to rules that were never meant for them, and according to fear that they mistake for caution. True power is not given, it is discovered, and it is discovered through deliberate action, through conscious choice, and through a willingness to confront the reality that you are far more capable than you have ever allowed yourself to believe. It begins with a deep and honest conversation with yourself, a confrontation with every excuse, every story, every belief that has been holding you back from stepping into your greatness. Most people look outward when they need to look inward. They search for opportunities, for mentors, for validation, when the real reservoir of strength, resilience, and capability resides inside their own mind, their own heart, and their own soul. To awaken your inner power, you must first recognize that you are not defined by your past, by the mistakes you have made, by the moments where you faltered, or by the voices that told you you could not. Those experiences are mere stepping stones, fuel for the engine of transformation, and yet most people carry them like chains, letting every setback become a sentence instead of a lesson. The moment you shift your perception, the moment you decide that everything you have experienced is material to build upon, that moment is the instant you ignite the first spark of your inner power. Your inner power is intimately tied to your identity, to the story you tell yourself about who you are and what you are capable of achieving. Most people allow society, media, and even family to write that story for them, but a monster in the making understands that identity is flexible, it is malleable, and it is entirely within their control. To awaken your inner power, you must rewrite your internal narrative, replacing every limiting belief with a declaration of possibility, replacing every whisper of doubt with a roar of conviction. You must tell yourself daily that you are unstoppable, that you are fierce, that you are capable of conquering challenges that others would shy away from, and that you are destined for achievement far beyond what most people can even imagine. This is not arrogance, this is clarity. This is understanding that the energy, the capability, and the potential that reside within you are not granted by the world. They are awakened through deliberate focus, unwavering commitment, and unyielding action. Power within is also bound to emotion, to the intensity with which you feel, to the fire that burns in your chest every time you dare to imagine what your life could become. Most people live in a low energy state, drifting through existence without feeling, without passion, and without intensity. But monsters, those who decide to awaken their inner power, harness emotion as their fuel. They cultivate an energy that commands attention, that radiates confidence, that signals to the universe that they are not to be ignored. And emotion alone is not enough. It must be paired with clarity of purpose. You can feel intensely about many things, but without a clear target, without a mission, without a vision that draws every ounce of your energy toward it, emotion will dissipate, wasted on triviality. Awakening your inner power requires that you focus that energy on a purpose that is so compelling, so magnetic, that you cannot help but move toward it with every fiber of your being. The awakening process also demands that you confront fear, because fear is the single greatest thief of potential. Fear manifests as doubt, hesitation, procrastination, and self-sabotage, and it lurks in every corner where greatness is waiting. But here is the paradox. Fear is not the enemy. Avoidance of fear is. The moment you step into the very thing that terrifies you, the very challenge you have been avoiding, the very risk you have been resisting, your power begins to grow. Every time you face fear and move through it, you expand your capacity, you reinforce your confidence, and you prove to yourself that you are capable of far more than your mind had previously allowed you to believe. Monsters understand that courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to act in spite of it. They do not wait for fear to disappear, they act, they move, they dominate the moment, and in doing so, they awaken a level of power that ordinary people can only dream of. Another crucial element in awakening your inner power is mastery of focus. Most people scatter their energy trying to be everything to everyone, chasing distractions, pleasing others, and surrendering their attention to the unimportant. But power accumulates where attention flows. The monster's mind is like a laser, concentrated on the objective, unyielding, and undistracted. Every day, every hour, every action is aligned with the ultimate goal. Distractions are recognized, acknowledged, and ignored. Energy is protected as a sacred resource because the monster knows that the difference between mediocrity and greatness lies not in effort alone, but in the direction, intensity, and persistence of effort over time. Focused action multiplies energy, amplifies results, and accelerates growth in ways that haphazard, scattered effort never can. The awakening of inner power is also inseparable from resilience. Life will challenge you, test you, and push you to limits that seem unbearable. Every obstacle, every setback, every moment of pain is an opportunity to awaken further strength within you. Monsters do not crumble. They bend, they adapt, they pivot, and then they explode forward with even greater force. Your inner power is like a muscle. The more you resist pressure, the stronger it becomes. The more you persist in adversity, the more invincible you feel. And the world respects and rewards those who demonstrate this relentless resilience because it signals capability, confidence, and control over destiny. Finally, awakening your inner power is about commitment to continuous growth. The monster understands that power is not a static state. It is dynamic, evolving, and expansive. Knowledge, skill, physical vitality, emotional intelligence, and spiritual alignment are all part of the arsenal of a truly powerful individual. Growth is deliberate, intentional, and relentless. Every day is an opportunity to strengthen, expand, and refine the capacities that allow you to dominate your life. Stagnation is the death of power. To awaken your inner strength fully, you must commit to lifelong learning, daily improvement, and an unwavering belief that no matter where you are today, you can rise higher tomorrow. To dominate your mindset is to take full control over the most powerful tool you have, your own mind. It is to understand that every thought you think, every belief you hold, and every emotion you allow to influence your behavior is either building you up or tearing you down. Most people live as passive passengers in their own lives, allowing random thoughts, external opinions, and circumstances to dictate the quality of their existence. They let fear run unchecked, doubt shape their decisions, and comfort cage them in mediocrity. But the person who dominates their mindset understands that they are the author of their own internal world, and they refuse to let anything outside of themselves determine the trajectory of their life. It starts with awareness, the willingness to watch your thoughts, to recognize patterns, and to question the beliefs that have been silently controlling you. Most people never do this. They simply accept the programming they received from childhood, from society, from peers, and from failed experiences, never realizing that they can rewrite every rule, every assumption, every limitation if they choose. To dominate your mindset is to stop being a victim of circumstance and start being the master of your own mental domain. The process of domination begins with clarity about what you want. A mind without focus is a mind at the mercy of randomness, reacting to life instead of creating it. The monster understands that clarity is power. When you are crystal clear about your goals, your values, and your non-negotiables, every decision becomes easier, every action becomes more aligned, and every obstacle becomes an opportunity to strengthen your resolve. Most people drift, unsure of what they want, influenced by trends, opinions, and fleeting desires, but the person who dominates their mindset locks onto a vision and refuses to release it, turning their entire thought process into a weapon of precision and power. Every day, every hour, every minute becomes a chance to reinforce that vision, to feed it, to cultivate it, and to let it shape the way the mind perceives challenges and opportunities. Controlling your mindset also requires mastery over your internal dialogue. The average person speaks to themselves with negativity, self-doubt, and judgment, often without even realizing it. The words we speak to ourselves shape our beliefs, and our beliefs shape our actions. If you constantly tell yourself you are not enough, that you will fail, or that the world is against you, your brain accepts these statements as truth, and your life becomes a reflection of that inner narrative. But the person who dominates their mindset rewires their inner dialogue intentionally. They speak in terms of possibility, growth, and empowerment. They train themselves to catch negative thoughts and replace them with statements of power and potential. They use affirmations, visualization, and focused repetition to flood their mind with certainty, confidence, and courage, recognizing that the internal conversation is the blueprint for external results. Emotions are a critical component of mindset domination. Most people are emotionally reactive, allowing anger, fear, sadness, or frustration to cloud their judgment and drive their behavior. But emotional mastery is not about suppressing feelings. It is about harnessing them as fuel. When you dominate your mindset, you choose which emotions to amplify, which to diminish, and how to channel them into productive action. Anger becomes motivation, fear becomes courage, frustration becomes focus, and doubt becomes determination. The monster understands that the mind and emotions are inseparable, and the moment you can consciously direct both, you create a level of resilience and power that few ever experience. This is why champions, leaders, and extraordinary individuals consistently outperform those with equal talent or resources. They have learned to master their inner world so completely that external events cannot destabilize them, cannot distract them, and cannot diminish their capacity for achievement. Another key aspect of dominating your mindset is taking responsibility for everything in your life. Most people unconsciously blame circumstances, other people, or luck for their situation, thinking that success or failure is something that happens to them. But domination comes from understanding that while you cannot always control what happens to you, you can control how you respond. Every setback is a lesson, every challenge is a training ground, and every failure is a stepping stone to mastery. When you adopt this mindset, you shift from reactive to proactive, from victim to creator, from passive to unstoppable. You stop wasting energy complaining or fearing, and you begin to channel every ounce of focus, effort, and intention into the actions that will move you toward your goals. Mindset domination also involves the deliberate selection of your inputs, what you consume mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. The average person allows negativity, gossip, fear, and distraction to flood their mind. They watch news that terrifies them, listen to people who doubt them, and dwell on problems instead of solutions. But the monster is deliberate with mental input. They consume information that educates, inspires, and empowers. They surround themselves with people who lift them higher, expose themselves to ideas that expand their thinking, and consciously avoid influences that diminish their energy or clarity. Dominating your mindset is as much about what you filter out as what you allow in. The mind is a garden, and your thoughts are the seeds. If you plant weeds, you harvest struggle, but if you plant seeds of possibility, courage, and focus, you reap extraordinary results. Of visualization is another tool that separates those who dominate their minds from those who do not. Most people only dream passively. They imagine the life they want, but never bring it to life in their internal experience. To dominate your mindset, you must see yourself achieving, overcoming, and thriving in vivid detail, repeatedly, consistently, and with emotion. When the mind is repeatedly exposed to the image of success, the brain begins to treat it as inevitable. The body and actions align to make the vision reality. Monsters see themselves not as they are, but as they are capable of becoming, and this relentless mental rehearsal rewires their beliefs, sharpens their focus, and ignites unstoppable confidence. Finally, dominating your mindset requires a commitment to constant growth. A mind that dominates today is vulnerable tomorrow if it is not nurtured, challenged, and expanded. Learning, reflecting, adapting, and pushing the boundaries of what you believe is possible ensures that your mental strength compounds over time. The monster does not settle for yesterday's victories. They do not allow themselves to plateau, and they do not excuse stagnation. Every day is an opportunity to refine your thinking, elevate your beliefs, and expand your capacity to handle more, achieve more, and become more. Taking massive action is the great separator between those who dream and those who achieve, between those who wish and those who win, between those who talk and those who dominate. Ideas without execution are illusions. Intentions without movement are excuses dressed in pretty words. And potential without action is wasted power. Most people stop at the level of desire. They say they want change. They say they want success. They say they want more out of life. But when it comes to stepping forward, when it comes to doing the thing that scares them, when it comes to putting in the energy day after day after day, they hesitate. They delay, they overthink, and in that hesitation, their power evaporates. But those who take massive action, those who move before they feel ready, those who act boldly and decisively, they are the ones who separate themselves from the crowd and rise into greatness. Massive action does not mean reckless, uncalculated flailing. It means action taken with intensity, with urgency, and with commitment to persist regardless of obstacles. It is not about doing one small thing and stopping. It is about building unstoppable momentum by stacking action on top of action, by creating a rhythm of progress so powerful that nothing can derail it. The monster understands that action creates clarity. You do not wait for the perfect plan, the perfect timing, or the perfect conditions, because they do not exist. You act, you move, you step forward, and as you do, you learn, you adjust, you refine, but you never pause for fear of imperfection. Those who take massive action understand that progress beats perfection, that motion defeats fear, and that the path reveals itself only to those who are willing to walk it. Fear is the greatest obstacle to massive action. But fear loses its power the moment you step into it. Most people wait for fear to go away before they move. But fear is not designed to disappear. It is designed to test your will. Every time you move through fear, you prove to yourself that it cannot control you, that it cannot dictate your future, that it cannot stop your growth. Action is the antidote to fear. When you take massive action in the face of doubt, hesitation, or insecurity, you rewire your brain to associate challenge with strength, not weakness, and every bold step forward builds a foundation of courage that allows you to take even bigger steps in the future. The monster knows that fear is a compass pointing toward growth, and they sprint toward it instead of shrinking away. Taking massive action also means committing to consistency. Anyone can act once. Anyone can get motivated for a day. Anyone can try something when energy is high, but it takes true discipline to keep moving when motivation fades, when progress feels slow, when results are not immediate. This is where most people quit. They confuse lack of instant results with lack of progress. They confuse struggle with failure. They confuse difficulty with impossibility. But massive action means showing up again and again, regardless of how you feel, regardless of whether or not anyone is watching, regardless of whether or not recognition comes. It means committing to doing what must be done until the results arrive, no matter how long it takes. Consistency creates inevitability, and the monster understands that when you keep stacking effort, when you keep pounding the stone, eventually the breakthrough comes. There is also an intensity to massive action that average effort will never touch. It is not about doing what everyone else does. It is about doing more, pushing harder, and stretching further than what feels comfortable. Comfort kills progress, and massive action is the antidote to comfort. When you step into discomfort deliberately, when you take actions that most people avoid, when you work with a level of urgency that shocks those around you, you begin to separate yourself from the crowd. The monster does not dabble. They do not dip a toe in opportunity. They dive headfirst into it, willing to sway, to bleed, to sacrifice in the pursuit of their vision. They understand that greatness demands intensity, and they are willing to pay that price while others settle for mediocrity. Another truth about massive action is that it builds momentum, and momentum is a force of nature. Small actions create small ripples, but massive action creates waves that carry you forward even when energy dips. The hardest part of any journey is the beginning, the first steps, the initial push against inertia. But once you move with intensity and sustain that movement, you create a current that becomes difficult to stop. Momentum compounds effort, multiplies results, and accelerates growth in ways that slow, hesitant action never can. This is why monsters focus on building speed, stacking victories, and refusing to let themselves slow down. They understand that momentum is their ally, and once they build it, it becomes almost impossible for them to fail. Massive action also requires resilience, because no matter how hard you push, challenges will come. You will encounter setbacks, rejection, failure, and pain. And this is where most people falter. They interpret obstacles as signs to quit, as evidence that they are not capable, as reasons to stop. But the monster interprets obstacles as signals to push harder, to grow stronger, to refine strategy, but never to retreat. They take the hit, they absorb the lesson, and they keep moving, often faster than before. They know that every setback is temporary, every rejection is redirection, and every failure is feedback. Resilience fuels action, and action fuels resilience, creating a cycle of strength that few can compete with. Another aspect of massive action is resourcefulness. Too often, people claim they cannot act because they lack resources, money, time, or support. But massive action is not about having everything. It is about using what you have to create movement. The monster knows that resourcefulness is the ultimate resource. Creativity, persistence, and determination can outmatch money, connections, and comfort every time. When you refuse to accept excuses, when you focus on what you can do instead of what you cannot, you awaken a level of power inside you that creates opportunities where none existed before. Massive action does not wait for permission or perfect conditions. It creates them through relentless movement. Massive action is also contagious. When you move with urgency, with intensity, with an undeniable force of will, people around you feel it. They notice, they respect it, and often they are pulled into your orbit. Opportunities come to those who are in motion. Connections appear, support grows, and doors open because action signals seriousness, and seriousness attracts results. The monster does not sit quietly waiting to be chosen. They act so boldly that the world cannot ignore them. Their action speaks louder than words, and their movement creates a gravity that draws success toward them. Ultimately, massive action is about embodying a decision. Once the decision is made, hesitation ends. The monster does not dabble in half decisions. They do not say, "I'll try." They say, "I will." And then they prove it with relentless, immediate, and overwhelming action. The power is not in talking, planning, or dreaming. The power is in doing, in moving, in executing with a force so strong that failure has no choice but to collapse under the weight of persistence. Every great achievement in history, every breakthrough, every empire, every innovation came from someone willing to act massively when others hesitated. The monster understands this truth and lives it daily, moving so boldly and so consistently that success becomes inevitable. Relentless discipline is the backbone of greatness, the invisible force that separates those who succeed once from those who succeed for a lifetime, the core that transforms ordinary people into unstoppable monsters. Discipline is not glamorous, it is not exciting, it is not what most people post about or celebrate, but it is the single most consistent predictor of extraordinary achievement. Discipline is the choice to do what needs to be done, not just when you feel like it, not just when it's convenient, not just when energy is high, but every single time it matters. Most people let feelings control their actions. They act when they're motivated, when they're excited, when the mood is right. But relentless discipline means you act regardless of mood, regardless of energy, regardless of circumstances, because you have made a decision that your standards are higher than your excuses. Relentless discipline is about ownership. It means refusing to outsource responsibility for your results to anyone or anything else. It means taking full accountability for your actions, your habits, your routines, and your outcomes. The monster never blames conditions, never blames timing, never blames the people around them. They look in the mirror and recognize that their destiny is shaped by their daily decisions. That level of ownership demands discipline because it requires you to step up every single day, to follow through on the commitments you made to yourself, even when nobody is watching, even when there is no external reward in sight. Ownership demands that you hold yourself to a higher standard, that you refuse to let yourself off the hook, that you build a reputation with yourself, that when you say you will do something, you do it without question. Relentless discipline is built through habits. Success is not about the one big action, the one lucky break, or the one huge opportunity. It is about the small, repeated behaviors compounded over time. Discipline means creating habits that align with your vision and then executing them with precision day after day after day. Wake up early, train your body, sharpen your mind, feed your spirit, manage your time, and protect your energy. These habits may feel small in isolation, but when done consistently, they build a foundation of unstoppable power. Monsters know that the body follows the mind and the mind follows the routine. By shaping habits deliberately, by enforcing discipline in the smallest details, they create an environment where success is inevitable and excuses have no place to survive. Discipline is also about sacrifice. Most people want success but refuse to give up the distractions, the comforts, and the habits that keep them average. They say they want greatness but cling to their comfort zones like security blankets. Relentless discipline demands sacrifice. It demands that you let go of what is easy so you can claim what is extraordinary. It means saying no when others say yes. It means walking away from temporary pleasure for long-term fulfillment. It means enduring boredom, discomfort, and repetition because you know that every rep, every hour, every sacrifice is another brick laid in the foundation of your legacy. The monster does not resent sacrifice. They embrace it. They see it as proof that they are on the path that others are unwilling to walk, and they use it as fuel to separate themselves even further from the masses. Relentless discipline requires control over your environment. Most people allow their surroundings to dictate their behavior, letting distractions, temptations, and influences weaken their resolve. The disciplined individual engineers their environment deliberately, creating conditions where success is the default. They eliminate temptations. They surround themselves with people who challenge them. They design routines that keep them focused, and they cut away the noise that pulls others off course. Discipline is not just about willpower. It is about structure. Willpower is finite, but structure reinforces discipline until it becomes automatic. The monster does not rely on fleeting motivation to stay on track. They build systems that lock them into alignment with their vision, ensuring that even on their worst day, their actions still pull them forward. Relentless discipline is not rigid. It does not mean mindlessly repeating actions that no longer serve your vision. It means maintaining unwavering commitment while being flexible in execution. The monster recognizes when strategies must change, when tactics must shift, but their discipline ensures that even in adaptation, the momentum never stops. They may pivot, they may adjust, but they never quit. They stay true to the standard they have set for themselves, even as circumstances evolve, because their discipline is not about what they do. It is about who they are. It has become identity, ingrained so deeply that deviation feels unnatural and commitment feels automatic. Discipline is also about patience. In a world addicted to instant gratification, most people quit because results don't come fast enough. They give up on fitness because they don't see transformation in a week. They give up on business because profit doesn't come overnight. They give up on relationships because challenges arise. But relentless discipline is the antidote to impatience. It is the ability to keep going, to keep working, to keep executing long after the initial excitement has worn off, long after most people have quit, long after the novelty has disappeared. The monster is patient not because they enjoy waiting, but because they trust the process, because they know that relentless effort compounded over time always produces results, because they understand that the law of consistency cannot be denied. Another critical element of relentless discipline is emotional control. Discipline is not just about physical actions. It is about mastering your reactions, your impulses, and your urges. Most people are slaves to their emotions. They lash out when angry. They withdraw when afraid. They indulge when tempted. They quit when discouraged. But the disciplined individual recognizes that emotions are temporary, and they refuse to let temporary feelings dictate permanent outcomes. They master the art of responding instead of reacting, of sticking to their plan regardless of mood, of staying focused when others are distracted by emotional storms. This emotional discipline gives them an edge because it keeps them steady when others waver, consistent when others collapse, and powerful when others retreat. Relentless discipline is freedom. Most people see discipline as restriction, as limitation, as the absence of fun or spontaneity. But in reality, discipline is the highest form of freedom. When you are disciplined, you are not controlled by cravings, by laziness, by fear, or by distraction. You are in control. You decide where your time goes, where your energy flows, and what outcomes you create. Discipline frees you from regret, from mediocrity, from the pain of unrealized potential. The monster knows that the disciplined life is not the harder life. It is the only life where greatness can exist. It's the only life where true fulfillment can be built. The only life where legacy is forged. Relentless discipline ultimately comes down to a standard. Most people set their standards low. They do what is acceptable, what is comfortable, what is common. But the disciplined individual raises their standards to a level that others would call extreme because they know that extreme standards create extreme results. They refuse to tolerate weakness. They refuse to excuse inconsistency. They refuse to let themselves off the hook. Their standard becomes who they are, and everything they touch is elevated by that standard. The monster does not occasionally practice discipline. They embody it in every area of life because they understand that discipline in one area reinforces discipline in all areas. Health, business, relationships, growth, everything rises when discipline is unleashed without compromise. Owning your purpose is the final step in becoming unstoppable because without purpose, power has no direction, energy has no aim, and action has no meaning. Most people drift through life without ever claiming their true reason for being, moving from one distraction to another, living for the approval of others, chasing comfort instead of fulfillment, and wondering why they feel empty even when they achieve small victories. Purpose is the anchor that steadies you when storms hit. It is the fire that fuels you when energy is low. It is the compass that points you forward when you are lost. And it is the standard that keeps you aligned when temptations try to pull you off course. To own your purpose means you do not borrow it from others. You do not adopt it from society. You do not settle for what is expected. You claim it, you define it, and you live it with an intensity that makes everything else secondary. Owning your purpose starts with asking yourself the deepest and most uncomfortable questions. Who am I really beyond the labels, beyond the titles, beyond the roles I play for others? What do I value so deeply that I would sacrifice comfort to protect it? What vision for my life excites me so much that it pulls me forward even when I am exhausted? What legacy do I want to leave behind long after I am gone? Most people never ask these questions because the answers demand responsibility, and responsibility demands change. It is easier to go with the flow, to do what is safe, to live on autopilot, but the monster refuses ease. The monster confronts the questions, digs deep for answers, and commits to living in alignment with what they discover. They are willing to burn away the false identities, the borrowed values, and the fake goals that were never truly theirs, so that the authentic purpose can rise with clarity and power. Owning your purpose also requires courage, because once you identify what matters most, the world will test your commitment. You will face resistance from people who do not understand your vision. You will encounter doubt from those who fear your growth. You will feel the weight of judgment from those who chose safety while you chose meaning. But owning your purpose means refusing to trade it for approval, refusing to dilute it for comfort, refusing to abandon it for fear of rejection. Purpose is not for the weak, it is for the relentless. It demands that you stand tall in the face of opposition, that you move forward even when you feel alone, that you hold your mission higher than the opinions of the crowd. When you own your purpose, you no longer ask for permission, you no longer explain yourself, you no longer seek validation. You simply live it with a conviction so undeniable that the world is forced to respect it. Purpose transforms effort into devotion. Without purpose, work feels like obligation, discipline feels like punishment, and struggle feels meaningless. With purpose, work becomes sacred, discipline becomes empowering, and struggle becomes a proving ground. When you own your purpose, you stop asking, how much do I have to do? And start asking, how much can I give? You stop looking for shortcuts and start looking for ways to expand, to grow, to pour more of yourself into the mission. The monster understands that purpose-driven action generates a level of energy and resilience that sheer willpower cannot sustain. Purpose creates an inexhaustible reservoir of fuel that keeps you moving when others quit, that keeps you inspired when others burn out, that keeps you focused when others scatter. Purpose transforms the grind into glory because every step, no matter how hard, moves you closer to fulfilling something bigger than yourself. Owning your purpose also demands alignment. Too many people claim to know their purpose, but live in ways that contradict it. They say they value health, but neglect their body. They say they value growth, but waste time in distractions. They say they value relationships, but fail to give presence to the people they love. When your actions do not align with your purpose, you feel dissonance, you feel frustration, you feel powerless. The monster closes that gap. They align their time, their habits, their relationships, their environment, and their decisions with their purpose. Every choice either strengthens the mission or weakens it, and they refuse to tolerate the choices that weaken it. Alignment creates integrity, and integrity creates power, because when your life is congruent, when your actions match your words, when your habits match your values, you become unstoppable. You stop fighting yourself, you stop sabotaging your progress, and you begin to live with a sense of certainty and clarity that others cannot shake. Purpose also expands beyond self. When you own your purpose, you realize it is not just about what you achieve for yourself, but about the impact you create for others. The monster does not chase selfish success. They seek significance. They want their life to mean something, to shift something, to elevate others, to leave behind a ripple effect that continues long after they are gone. Purpose is amplified when it serves not just your growth, but the growth of others, when your actions inspire, when your words uplift, when your example challenges others to rise. Legacy is born from purpose, and owning your purpose means recognizing that you are not here merely to take, but to give, not merely to exist, but to matter, not merely to survive, but to transform the world in whatever way your mission demands. Owning your purpose requires clarity of vision. You cannot pursue something you cannot define. Vague intentions produce vague results, but precise vision produces precise results. The monster creates a clear picture of what their purpose looks like in reality. They define it. They visualize it. They articulate it so clearly that it becomes tangible. They wake up each day with their purpose imprinted in their mind, and every decision, every action, every conversation is filtered through that vision. Clarity creates focus. Focus creates momentum, and momentum creates transformation. Without clarity, you drift. With clarity, you dominate. Owning your purpose also means perseverance. Purpose does not guarantee an easy road. In fact, it guarantees the opposite. The more significant your mission, the greater the resistance you will face. But the monster welcomes this because resistance validates purpose. If your mission does not challenge you, it is not worthy of you. When you own your purpose, you refuse to quit when the path is hard. You refuse to retreat when obstacles appear. You refuse to water down your mission just because progress takes longer than expected. Purpose gives you the stamina to endure the seasons of struggle, the droughts of recognition, the nights of doubt, because you know the mission is bigger than the moment. The vision is worth the pain. The journey is worth the cost. The destination is worth the endurance. Owning your purpose means claiming identity. Purpose is not something you visit occasionally. It is something you embody. It becomes who you are, not just what you do. The monster does not say, I have a purpose. They say, I am my purpose. It is in their voice, in their actions, in their presence. People can feel it before they hear it. That level of ownership makes your purpose unshakable because it is no longer a goal outside of you. It is your essence, your DNA, your standard of living. No setback can take it. No critic can diminish it. No circumstance can erase it because it is not separate from you. It is you